Hey everyone, welcome to the Other Side of Addiction podcast. This episode is brought to you by our platinum sponsor, Matter Behavioral Health at 265 State Street in Mount Pleasant. If you know somebody who's looking for a unique recovery center, we highly, highly recommend Matter Behavioral. You can reach them at 435-462-2781. Man, we got a really good show planned for you today. So as you can see, I am actually by myself today. We have no guest co-host. So I don't know, maybe should I be nervous, Yvonne? I
think I should be the nervous
one. You should be the nervous one. Yeah. Hey, we have a really special guest for you here today, and you may have seen her on other shows. We have Yvonne Rodgers with us. So Yvonne, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I don't even remember. I think our friend Lori Warburton introduced us, right? Or it was
Absolutely.
A Tribe of Giants? Or no, it was Lori, because
Lori.
She says, I got this good friend. You got to hear her story. Yeah. And we've invited you in, and you've been a guest co-host a few times.
Yes.
But I'm excited to hear what you have to share with us today.
Yes.
Because there's, with a lot of the stuff that you have gone through, I know for a fact that there are other women who have gone through that as well.
Absolutely.
And I also know that there are a few who are a little worried, about sharing their story, and again, it comes to that fear. Like I had fear of telling people that my wife was an alcoholic. And yes. I know a lot of times women have that fear too of repercussion of being like in an abusive marriage and different things like that. So
yes.
To get started here, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there.
I'm the oldest of 6. My parents are still alive. I have 3 children and 3 wonderful grandchildren.
I love it.
They're actually my world.
Yeah.
And I'm permanently disabled from what I've gone through. So I am trying to make a change with what I've gone through and trying to get some laws changed for domestic violence. I'm currently writing a book, and I'm just taking one day at a time.
I love it. Now, I like what you said, about the grandchildren, because we have 3 as well. As a matter of fact, our granddaughter was baptized last night, so that was really cool to go see. And yeah, they have a way of changing your life, huh?
Oh, yes. I call them the rewards for not killing my children.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yes.
When my grandma passed away, it was the last grandma I had, and I was very lucky to have my grandparents pretty much almost throughout half my life.
Me too.
Very, very lucky, and it felt good. But I remember saying at her funeral, I hope I could be at least half the grandparent that her and my grandpa were to all of us grandkids. It was funny because my cousins and I were talking at a little luncheon after the funeral, and we were all saying, well, Grandma said I was the special one. And then someone said, no, Grandma said I was the special one. We come to realize they were so good at being grandparents, they made each one of us feel like we were the very special ones.
Yes.
None of the other ones mattered. It was just us. And it was so cool. And I look at it now, and I hope I can be half the grandparent that my grandparents were for us. And you do what you can to inspire your grandchildren.
Yes.
Make them feel special. But for me, in all reality, I think they're the ones that make me feel special.
Yes, there's nothing like the love of a grandchild. I mean, like last night, we were over at my mom and dad's for my mom's birthday party, and my 2 youngest ones were over there. They're 7 and almost 4. A boy and a girl, and my little granddaughter, she came running, Grandma Bonbon, I missed you so much. And she gives me this big hug, and there's just, it just melts your heart. And my grandson, I get him twice a week from school and just spend the day. And he was supposed to stay over last night, but we had a family emergency, and so he couldn't. So I'm getting him Friday for a sleepover, and he was just so devastated. Well, I wanted to stay at Grandma's house.
And doesn't that make you feel really special? Because when we were watching our oldest granddaughter, there were times we'd have her, and her dad would come and pick her up after work. And as soon as her dad would walk in, our granddaughter would go, no, 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 Daddy, no, no. And she'd run and come and jump in my arms like, I don't want to go home.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes you feel real special.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they call me, and, my oldest is 12, so she's kind of, shying away from wanting to be with grandma as much, but
yeah,
she's
happens.
Independent and beautiful.
And that's at 12?
Yes.
Yeah, see, our oldest granddaughter's 10, and yeah, you cannot talk to her like she's a child, because if you do, she'll just ignore you. You have to talk to her like an adult.
Yes.
She doesn't hang out with us trick-or-treating anymore. She's out with her
friends. Yeah, I take her shopping, and it's like, okay, are we going to Dillard's, or are we going to Kohl's? Dillard's. And she knows what she wants. She knows the jeans that she wants. It's like, okay.
Yeah, the two youngest grandkids, we take them out for their birthday. They get to choose where they want to go for lunch and where they want to go birthday shopping.
Yep.
And throughout all these years, it's been Taco Bell or Chick-fil-A or McDonald's. Well, our oldest granddaughter, it was about a year ago. I'm like, so where do you want to go for lunch? She goes, Outback sounds good. I'm like, oh my hell. Can't we just do like Chick-fil-A?
Yeah.
Oh man, you're graduating.
Yeah, and they remember everything that you tell them. They're smart. I think they're way smarter than my kids were at that age.
Yeah,
they remember everything.
I would have to agree with you on that 100%. So now, are you originally from Salt Lake City?
I grew up actually in Hooper, so yeah, I'm originally from here, born and raised.
You said Helper?
Hooper.
Oh, Hooper. I thought you said Helper, because I was going
Hooper.
Like, all our grandparents are from Kenilworth, which is like right up from Helper. So
Hooper.
Okay.
Yes. In the country.
Back in the country, yeah.
Back in the country.
Well, I grew up in West Jordan when it was country, but it's not country anymore.
Catching frogs and
yeah.
Still do with my grandkids. So.
That's cool. Good for you. Good for you. So we were talking before the show. You and I have pretty much been on the same side of the addiction, right? My wife battled alcoholism, and I know it's a little different being a parent of somebody that battles an addiction.
Yes. My son battled addiction. Me and his father got divorced after 20 years, and he did not handle it well, and so he turned to drugs. It was a slow process for him, and I didn't realize how it affected him. And then he had a full-blown addiction to meth.
Wow.
And he was just really heartbroken and angry. He had a lot of anger towards me. And he wouldn't go to rehab, and it just got worse, and he couldn't live with his dad because he wouldn't follow the rules. And I mean, he was a manager at Training Table. He had a car. He had good credit, and he just slowly started going downhill. And he lost his job. His car got repossessed, and so I took him in, and he couldn't live with me because he wasn't following the rules, and it was causing problems between me and my husband at the time. And so he lived with my mom and dad, and he was doing okay, but I was living every day of wondering if I was going to get a phone call that my son was dead. And the phone call came that from my daughter that Colton was having a psychotic episode, and would I finally put him in rehab. So we got him in a rehab center, which that's another story. I'm not necessarily a fan of a rehab center because they set my son up for failure. They told him he had an 80% failure rate because of his age, which to me, a rehab center is supposed to not set somebody up for failure because of his age.
And how old was he again?
He was 20.
He was 20.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had Dave DeRocher on the show quite a few months back. Well, actually, it was last year. And he said just what you just said. And he's not bad-mouthing all rehabs. Right. So I want to make sure that the audience knows this, that it's not all rehabs, because there are good rehabs out there. But he was saying that a lot of them do set you up for failure. And why he said that is because he goes, they basically tell them it's okay if you relapse. It's all part of the process. Dave doesn't believe in that.
I don't either.
He doesn't believe that, because you're giving him
an excuse.
Okay.
Yes,
to
that's
go,
how I felt.
well, they said it's probably going to happen, so...
I believe if you pray somebody and tell them they can make it, they're going to make that. You give them the vision. You see it, you can become it.
Yeah.
And there was 3 boys his age in the program. And when I would go for family night, everyone in that program that was older, they had been in there 2 and 3 times. Well, obviously the program wasn't succeeding. I mean, if I'm going to run a program, I mean, I'm a perfectionist, which is a pro and a con. It's a double-edged sword. So I'm very hard on myself, and I've had anorexia because of it. So, I know that's a choice, but it's also a choice to do drugs. I mean, you have a choice to say yes or a choice to say no. I mean, I just look at things that way, and I'm an empath, so I feel people's emotions, and so it's very hard for me when my son was struggling with this. And to hear people, there was parents that their daughter was 52, and so they were raising her children. She was in there for the 3rd time, and they were raising her children, mortgaged their home to the hilt. And here's my son, and he's pretty much giving an excuse for being an addict.
Yeah.
And a young mother with her husband in there for the 3rd time trying to raise her kids. He's in there for the 3rd time, and I stood up and I said, I would throw her to the curb, let her fend for herself. I would divorce him until he can make a choice to grow up and take care of his family. And I said, I'm supporting my son, and I can believe that he can succeed in this program. Because if you don't believe that he can succeed, then he's not going to succeed.
Yeah.
And the 2 other boys that were in that program, one of them overdosed and died in the facility.
While he was in the facility?
While he was in the facility.
Wow.
And the other one overdosed and died, I believe, about a month later. And so my son is the only one that succeeded in that program because they set him up to fail. And I always believed in my son.
Yeah.
And I have found out since then that my son, when he was having a psychotic episode, he actually took acid, which I didn't know, and that he had, I believe in a higher power. I see angels, and because I've had a life after death experience, and he was given a vision that he had 2 paths, and one to go down would end his life and ruin, or he could choose to recover and become the man he is today. And I'm so proud of him. He has my wonderful grandchild. He has a beautiful, loving, supportive wife, and he's come back, and I'm so proud of him.
And it goes to show that recovery is possible.
Absolutely.
And there for a long time, I was really confused, and there's been a few times I've even defended this choice thing. There for a long time, I really didn't think it was about choice. I thought it was just the disease, whatever was hurting them with inside, that's what was causing it to happen. But it is still against, it still has to do with choice, because they can choose to use or not to use. And I know how strong that power is, not personally, just by a lot of people that we've had on the show, watching my wife go through the battle. And I've also found out, too, that by doing this show and having the incredible guests that we've had on our show, there's something that happens to them where they finally go, it's time. What you said about your son, I got goosebumps. What you said about your son happened to the same thing with my wife. So the last time that she was in jail, as she was getting sobered up, she said she was visited by God. And he basically told her, this is your last shot. You will not have any more chances after this. And when she got out and she called me, because I wouldn't let her back home. I said, no, absolutely not. You are not going to be underneath my roof. And she goes, no, I had this vision and I had this visit. And I'm like, yeah, you know how many times I've heard that? More than I can count. Of course, not too long after she got out of jail, she was drunk again. I mean, hammered. This was the time that it really, really scared me, because that was the first time that I could look in my wife's eyes and I literally saw death.
Right.
I was really preparing myself, going, she will be gone within a week. I need to make sure that I prepare myself and I'm getting ready for it. And we ended up finally, after a big fight, got her to the detox. They kicked her out of detox at the LDS hospital because she's been there too many times and then not finished the whole thing. And they finally said, no, we're done. And they sent her to the VOA. But when she got out of that and she moved in with her daughter for a couple days and then called me and said, please come and get me, to see how bad that alcohol had affected her. I mean, she couldn't even carry on a conversation. I'm even surprised that at first I thought it was the medication that they gave you when you're in VOA to help with the detox and things like that. But it got to where she was shuffling her feet and couldn't hardly carry on a conversation. And, I'm one that believes in God, that there has to be a higher power.
Absolutely.
And my uncle gave her a blessing, and to see the change that happened. It took a while, but to finally see that change. And she realized when she got that visit from God that he said, this is your last chance. She realized she was this close of dying. Yeah. And it's really cool to see a lot of the guests that come in and talk about that, to where they've had that spiritual awakening. And how many people like your son and even like my wife have been told by others that you're never going to beat this.
Right. That it's not your fault.
Yeah.
And I've talked to my son, and it's come out a couple of times. I didn't realize what he saw happen, with me, the trauma, like Ian put it, was really profound when I was here with Ian being the co-host of, you can take away the alcohol, you can take away the drugs, and the person isn't fixed.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that and listening to, my son open up more and more of what he's gone through. I didn't realize how that affected him on what he saw me go through, the abuse that he has seen me go through. Because, he actually saved my life on one situation, and I didn't realize how that had affected him and how he kept it in, and what he had gone through. And it just made me feel so bad that I did not see that. And I look back and wonder if I could have stopped him from having to go through that. So, that's some guilt that I carry with my son.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and as a mother, I can see that guilt being put on you. My mom, there's 3 of us, and my mom thinks she has failed as a marriage, or as not as a marriage, as a mother, because of a lot of the stuff all of us kids have gone through. And I don't know how many times I've sat down with my mom and said, Mom, this has nothing to do with you. The choices we made in our life were the choices we made. You didn't push us to those choices.
Right.
But as a mother, it's very hard to accept that, because I would, think, yeah, you do feel like that you did something wrong. We've had a gal on our show a few times, and she's been a guest co-host. Matter of fact, a lot of times she's here in the studio with us, Sylvia, and she has a son who's battling a meth or heroin. I think it's heroin, and it's really taking her down a dark place. And we were chatting last week when we were here in the studio, and we were saying, you gotta have that self-care. Now it sounds like you stayed within your boundaries. It sounds like, from what I'm hearing, unless I'm misunderstanding. But she was even telling me, she goes, Al, it's different than what you went through compared to what I went through. She goes, yours was your wife. Now with a spouse, you can just wipe your hands and say, you know what, I'm done. Get the hell out of here. I'm done with you. I'm through. But when it comes to your child,
you never give up.
That's a whole different thing, and I don't know why myself, because I threw in the towel I don't know how many times, and then I'd go and pick it back up just to throw it down again and say, I'm done with this shit. No, I'm not. Okay, yes, no, I'm not,
Right.
And Janessa, who comes on as a guest co-host, she did the same thing. A lot of people are just saying, hey, just leave your husband. He's never going to get well. I don't know what. Well, I do. I know God kept me around for a reason, and I believe she thinks that same thing. But
well, we all set our boundaries of when we stay with a spouse, like I did in my abusive marriage. Love is unconditional, and we set the boundaries of we can still love. Sometimes they can't be in our life. It doesn't mean we don't love them, but we don't have limits on when we stop loving, and we see a person that we love and we can put their actions aside because we love them, not the actions that they're doing.
Yeah.
And so people may look on the outside, why are you staying with that person? They don't know what that person is that you fell in love with.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why victims of abuse stay with that abuser. They see that person they fell in love with, not the person that they become.
Yeah. And that's we'll definitely want to talk about that here in the second part of the show, because I think that is a whole nother different thing, because I've been the same way. I've scratched my head and go, how can someone stay in an abusive marriage?
Yes.
And I never really thought about it, Yvonne, until you just said that it's that love, I stuck around with Janan because I knew this wasn't her.
Right.
No way in hell that was her. I knew there had to be something different, something that was causing her to go the route that she was going. Right. I mean, she could have just as easily turned into be a food addict or a gambling addict, but it ended up being alcohol.
Right.
I mean, it could have went so many different directions.
Right. But
it goes the direction I think that it's supposed to go. God has that path, and now I would have never ever thought in a million years. Last week, my wife and I were invited to go to Corner Canyon Health Center, and they gave us 2 hours, and we got up and talked in front of their clients, and we shared our stories, and I've gone to Recovery Day, last September, and then I ended up doing a podcast that talks about addiction, and and it's like it's just going to a whole different realm. And I have laid in bed many nights with my eyes closed and start thinking of stuff and going, everything that happened these past 4 or 5 years happened to put us right here where we're supposed to be right now.
Yes. And my son was on the road to being clean, and then he found out he was having his son, and that even motivated him more, because I know there was a point that he wanted to die.
Yeah, I bet. And
then he found out he was having a son, and that just gave him motivation to become clean. And he is the best father. He's got a mini-me. His son looks exactly like him. I'm like, oh.
Does one of these.
He's going to give you the same run. But me and my son have always been close. So I think that bond helped him. And, he never did lie to me or steal from me, which a lot of addicts do. Yeah. But he never did. So I have that to be grateful for, and we're still close to this day. Me and all my kids are very close. So I'm grateful for that, and they've always been there for me through everything. I wish, they didn't have to say, oh, my mom's been through this.
Yeah.
I wish but we have a good family bond and connection, which I'm really grateful for.
That's really good, because a lot of times the addiction breaks up families quite a bit.
Right.
There's certain family members that my wife and I, we don't associate with anymore, and there's some other reasons behind it, but it goes back to what you said. You can still have love for individuals, but it's not like you need them in your home or right by your side all the time, right?
Right. And my brothers and my sister, all of them have been very supportive and loving, and
that's cool.
It's been really good. and cousins and everything were, yeah, all loved and helped through everything and just there.
You know, the support means so much. You know, we do our best with our loved one to support them the best we know how. And for me, I didn't know how. I did so many things wrong. But to be able to give them that support, but also what I think a lot of people don't understand is the people on the other side, like ourselves, we need support too, you know.
Right.
It just breaks my heart. Like I said, my friend who I was just talking about earlier, I texted her before the show started, and I'm like, are you okay? Because usually she's here in the studio, and if she wasn't here, and she's struggling.
Right.
You know, she's really having a hard time, and because I've been on the other side, I feel her pain. I can close my eyes and see her being dragged down that rabbit hole, you know?
Well, that's what I said, because I'd go to group and they said only another addict could be a sponsor. And I said, why? Well, because you don't know what we're going through. And I said, well, you don't know what we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't know us waiting up, you know, not knowing if you're dead or alive or where you're at or if we're going to get the phone call, that final phone call. I said, or like all of you, I said, you know, the cheating, the lying, the stealing. I said, thank heavens I haven't had to go through that. But I said, you will never know what we've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so I don't need to jump off a cliff to know what the end result's going to be. We know what's going to happen if we jump off a cliff. So I said, you need to take the big picture and look at the retrospect of everything, not just through this little hole.
Yeah.
And I said, maybe if you look at that, maybe the program might be more successful. And so I looked at that with my son and said, you need to talk to me. You need to share your feelings with me. You know, it's okay to be angry at me, but you don't know everything that I've gone through. You don't know the reason me and your father got divorced. And it's not all my fault. You know, it doesn't matter whose fault it is. Me and your dad, we get along great. We're just not good together. We both supported him. We're good friends. And we're both here to love and support you. And I think once he realized that, it helped him a lot.
Yeah, I bet it did. Yeah, it's the whole addiction thing is just a crazy thing. There's definitely work that needs to be done. You said at the start of the show, you know, that you're working on like the domestic violence kind of thing, and I would love to see things change in our courts, even for addicts. Yes. You know, because now there are those, you know, that go out and commit crimes.
Yes.
You know, they beat up people to get their money, or, you know, they're breaking into homes, you know, to steal things. That is against the law. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's against the law to do drugs.
Yes.
What we call illegal drugs in this country. But I don't think throwing somebody in jail is the right thing, because I know it was either the first or the second time that my wife was thrown in jail. When she came back home, she goes, well, that did me a lot of good. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? She goes, well, I know now where to go buy heroin. I know who to go buy meth from. Exactly. Because that's all they talk about in there. So basically you're just giving them a feeding ground. Mm-hmm. And yes, maybe some do deserve to be in there. I'm not saying that they don't, but there are some, and maybe I'm looking at it just because she's my wife, but I don't really ever think she did anything bad enough to be thrown in jail. Now, the times I kicked her out where she was getting abusive, yes, I understand, but I think it needs to be something different. Not thrown in the Salt Lake County jail, maybe come up with a different type of system.
A facility that makes them go through a program, not jail.
Yep.
Because, I mean, my friend, her son was my son's age, and they actually used together. And he could never get himself clean. And he had just got through going to jail because she turned him in because he stole stuff. And he did his time, and then he got out. And he was actually in a facility. I'm not exactly sure what it's for, but it was a facility, and he actually went out and I didn't know you could buy preloaded syringes of drugs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Neither did I till now.
And he actually came back and he actually overdosed and died. And this just happened probably 6 months ago. So she lost her son to drugs. He lost the fight. And they need to go after the people that are selling the drugs, not the people that are buying them. Because you're always going to have somebody that's buying. If they cut the head of the snake off, then you don't have a snake anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's where they need to solve the problem.
I agree. This whole thing needs to be looked at in a whole different manner. We've been doing things, in my eyes, maybe others disagree, but in my eyes, we've been doing things wrong for way, way too long. And the proof is in the pudding.
I agree.
If what we've been doing for 50, 60, 70 years.
Hardcore drugs. I mean, marijuana is not going to kill somebody. I'm sorry. I used to think that, but not anymore.
Yeah. I just got invited to be on a podcast to talk about marijuana addiction, and that one's going to be a tough one because I don't really think that's too much of a thing.
I don't either. You don't hear anybody dying or overdosing on marijuana, but we need to focus on coke, heroin, meth, all of that stuff, fentanyl. Yeah.
And with you saying that, Yvonne, the lady who has another radio station who invited me to come on and be a guest on her show, I said, you know what? I says, I don't have a problem talking about this type of stuff because I've learned a lot from our guests on our show. But we have more of a problem with the prescription drugs than we do with illegal drugs. Yeah. And I think it's time we start putting our foot down for that, because a lot of people who move to the heroin and things like that, they go to that off of like the opioids.
Yes.
Because it's easier to get, it's cheaper. So that's one thing that I
Well, it's interesting you say that. I have chronic pain, from what I have, and I'm on pain management. They give me 10 pain pills a month. How is that pain management? Yeah. They don't want me to become addicted, but yet I can go to my doctor for surgery and get 40 for a couple months, so I would be addicted, and then, okay, what do I do after that? That's when you get, but yet they're managing my pain, which I have chronic pain that I can't manage, and so they're giving me 10 pain pills a month. So where do you think if I was going to be an addict, where would you think I'd go?
Well, of course, you'd go out on the streets, and that's what happens to a lot of people. And again, I hope our listeners don't think that I'm saying I think all prescription drugs should be off the street. No, because there are times for it. There definitely is time for it. My first shoulder surgery that I had, I've got a very high pain tolerance. And when the block came off, I mean, literally, I was pacing my freaking living room because the pain was so bad. And I was popping the painkillers that the doc gave me. And I even tried drinking some alcohol with it just to try to help it. And it wasn't touching it.
Yeah.
And he prescribed me Oxycontin. And that's the first time that I have had that. And it literally just put me like a freaking potato on a couch. I was just like, ugh. Yeah. I couldn't move. I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I mean, my wife had to leave to go to the store, and I had to go to the restroom, and I literally had to scoot on my butt with my back up against the hall because I couldn't even stand up to walk to the restroom.
Yeah, and you see a lot of people like that. And my son had a really good friend that he did drugs with, and his mother, made some comments to him about drugs and made some comments to him. I'm not going to repeat exactly what she said, but he went down and hung himself in his bedroom. Yeah. And now my son was best friends with him. It really impacted my son.
Oh, I can imagine.
And I'm so grateful that I did not ever tell my son that I didn't like him or, Yeah. Because you can't ever take back what you say.
It's kind of like the internet, huh? Once you hit send, it's gone. It's out there.
Because words stay. Yeah. I mean, broken bones heal, but words don't ever undo. They, you take a piece of paper and you wad it up, and then you try to, unwrinkle it, but the wrinkles are still there. You can never get them out, and that's what words do to people.
Yeah, 100% correct. Well, guys, let's take a a little short break right now, so we're going to stop for a quick commercial and we'll come back and let's go into a little bit more, but then I'd like to get into where you talked about the start with the abuse and things like that, if you're comfortable with this. So, hey guys, stay with us. We will be right back.
Okay.
Have you ever been in a car accident? Do you know what to do after being in a car accident? Are the insurance companies going to take care of you? Hi, I'm attorney Rick Heaton with the Law Office of Bobby Udall. I will help you through the process and answer all of these questions. I give every single client my cell phone so they can talk to me whenever they need. Let me deal with the insurance company so you can focus on getting better from your injuries. Call me at 385-330-0226. Again, my cell phone number, 385-330-0226. Don't call the insurance company first. Call attorney Rick Heaton at 385-330-0226.
This is Gregory, owner of Lift Up Concrete, proudly serving the Wasatch Front for the last 12 years, lifting sunk and flat work for both residential and commercial applications. Only fully trained professionals lifting concrete at your residence with the same quality of material and method used at every commercial job we ever do. Don't replace it, lift it. liftupconcrete.net, 801-792-4535. Contact us at liftupconcrete.net, or if you're looking for a complimentary quote, 801-792-4535. Again, 801-792-4535. Again, this is Gregory, Lift Up Concrete Lifting.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the other side of addiction. Again, we want to thank our platinum sponsor, Matter Behavioral, out of Mount Pleasant. Man, that's a mouthful. Sometimes I have a hard time saying behavioral. Again, they are at 265 State Street in Mount Pleasant. If you know someone who's looking for a different type of rehab, these guys really, they get in the depth of what's causing the pain inside that's causing you to put the Band-Aid with addiction over. So you can reach them at 435-462-2781. And again, we are here with our special guest, Yvonne Rodgers. Yvonne, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you again for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I really loved the first part of the show, what we were getting into. And, you know, even during the break, we were even talking about recovery centers a little bit more. One thing that I'm finding out, a lot of the recovery centers now are changing their name. Instead of, I don't want to use certain names. Well, I'll use one that we had guests on our show the other day. So like Corner Canyon, it used to be Corner Canyon Recovery Center. Now they've changed their name to Corner Canyon Health Center. And when I was asking them why they changed their name, they were giving me the reasons, and the reasons were they realized that they had to start digging deeper inside of a person. There was a note my wife slipped me during one of our podcasts once. She wrote some on a piece of paper and just kind of slid it up here on the desk. And I think Ian mentioned it, that you were a guest co-host on when we had Ian on. But it's not the substance.
Correct.
That's the solution. It's what's inside.
Yes.
And we've heard many, many times on this show, and I am now a firm believer of it because I had to go through it as well by being on the other side. We have to learn how to heal ourselves from the inside out.
Correct.
Because if we're healing what's inside here, it really helps with what's on the outside of things. And it sounded like your son.
Yes, he
did
had a lot
that
of issues that I didn't realize that he had seen. You know, the trauma he had seen me go through, dealing with me and his father's divorce, which, I have never experienced divorce. My parents were still together, so I didn't understand what he had gone through with me and his father getting divorced, which I'm sure is hard for any child to go through. So, breaking the family up, that's hard.
Oh, yeah. Especially when they're young. You know,
Yes.
I got divorced with the mother of my daughters, when my youngest daughter was just pretty much almost a baby.
Yeah.
So, and it was really hard even for my oldest daughter because we were so close, and it's a tough situation. And it kind of goes back to, I wish I knew then what I know now.
Yes.
But
Hindsight is 20/20.
yeah, but it's part of that growing process
Yes.
again, because I beat myself up for a long time,
Me too.
for getting that divorce. Now, not saying there's not times for it, because they definitely are. I have some lady friends who have gone through some pretty bad relationships, and man, sometimes when I hear their stories, my blood just starts boiling, and I don't care if I piss somebody off that's listening to this podcast, but man, for a guy who definitely has more strength than a woman, and to be able to think that he is a man by pushing him around and shoving him around,
Yes.
I really have a hard time with that. I would like to see those type of guys go to prison and be pushed around by Bubba
Yes.
in prison, and see how well they like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. There needs to be mandatory charges for domestic violence, not
Yeah.
this plea bargaining or deciding not to press charges. The judicial system fails when it comes to domestic violence, and I'm trying to work on getting that changed. I would like a task force that oversees what the prosecutors charge when they plea bargain and when they don't charge. There needs to be accountability to the prosecutors, because that is where we are failing. That is the head of the snake where we are failing the victims of domestic violence. And I've actually talked to the Attorney General, and he agrees that it is. I just can't seem to get a senator or legislator behind me on the matter, because it seems like the minute we put the word domestic in front of violence, that they don't seem to take it seriously.
See, and that's so hard for me to understand. And the reason why is because I thought Utah was one of those states that didn't put up with that type of stuff, and now I'm learning that's bullcrap.
Yeah. I actually filed a complaint with the victims of crime on my case because how it was handled. There was a gun used in it, and I have a permanent disability. Those are the only requirements for a felony to be charged for domestic violence. Everything else is filed as a misdemeanor.
A gun and a disability.
Yes.
Those are the only two.
Yes. And in my case, both of those were used, and he was not charged with a felony. He had a previous domestic violence conviction, which the prosecutor ignored. He had violated the protective order 4 times before he was even convicted of domestic violence, and she didn't take them seriously. She told me it was up to her to decide what she prosecuted and did I want to go to trial. I said, yeah. He broke my arm. I have 9 plates and a screw in it. What's his excuse? And he put a gun to my head. He brought a shotgun out. And then he threatened to, he put the gun and sat down next to me with my broken arm and was going to blow his head off.
Jeez.
And then he The first time he broke the protective order was in court when I'm filing a protective order, and he come up to me and told me I could make it all go away. The second time, my son was there shoveling my driveway, and he come up, and I was home, and he threatened my son, and my son, he said, "You don't belong at my house," and my son was there. And my son said, "Why don't we call the cops? You're not supposed to be there." And the prosecutor said, "Your son's not on the protective order." I said, "No, but my house is, and he's not supposed to be here." The third time, I took my dog out and was taking her potty at night, and I saw a gentleman that would walk every night around the house. Well, I thought it was him. Well, it was actually my husband at the time. And I called 911, and the police came and arrested him. And while they were arresting him, he admitted that he was stalking there every night, so he was charged a fourth time. And she only decided she was going to only take one of those charges and prosecute him.
That's where we go back to where we say our judicial system is so messed up, you know. And not to pull away, because I want you to finish going the route that you're going, but I have a good friend who has a guy friend that I think he's been pulled over for 6 or 7 DUIs.
Yeah.
He still has his license.
Yeah.
My wife got pulled over for DUI. License gone, like that.
Depends on who you know.
But he has money.
Exactly.
We don't.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell me what's fair about our judicial system. It's and I had somebody tell me a long time ago, they're like, "Why is our courthouse so big?" And he goes, "Think about it. Why is it?" And I don't know how he did it. And I don't know if he's telling me the truth or not, because I really didn't know this guy all that well. But he's like, "I was able to get access through some of these floors," and I went up through the floors, and he says, "All they are is cubicles."
Yes, they are.
And he says, and it's people calling to collect money for a lot of the fines and different things that are going on. But I just think stuff needs to change, you know.
Absolutely.
And how many women, and there's been a few guys who have lost their life due to domestic violence.
Actually, I got the statistics for last year because they sent out how many crimes were committed last year. And there were 79 murders last year. 17 were domestic violence related. No, 21. And 19 of those were guns related. And the gun laws for domestic violence is if you have a protective order on you or you've been convicted of domestic violence, you're considered a restricted person. You cannot have possession of a firearm. Plain and simple. Well, I was I was getting my toes done, and this girl was sitting there, and we were just talking, and she was all flustered because she was going through a divorce, had a protective order on her husband. Like I said, there's no coincidences. You meet somebody for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
She had a protective order on her husband, and he was trying to get possession of his guns back, which you can't. Well, there's a little box on the protective orders. If that box isn't checked that says you can't have guns, law enforcement will not enforce them not having a weapon, even though the state law says you can't have a weapon. Now, how oxymoron is that?
Pretty oxymoron.
So I became good friends with the U.S. attorney and an ATF agent because my ex-husband took me to court to get possession of his 17 firearms back. And I was actually held in contempt of court, ordered to pay his attorney fees because I turned his 17 firearms into the sheriff's department.
Oh my gosh.
And I called the Weber County prosecutor's office and said, "This is going on. I need help." And I was told he had his guns before, so he can have them back. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? This is against federal law. This is against state law. This is against the Lautenberg Amendment and the Brady Bill." I said, "No." And so then I said, "Okay, let's put this reasoning to a DUI." I said, "So, when you get a DUI convicted, you'll lose your license, right?" Mm-hmm. I said, "But I had my license before, so I should get it back." "Well, no, that's not how it works." I said, "No kidding."
Wow, good for you. That's, yeah, a good way of saying that.
I said, let's put the logic here. She's like, well, that's not how it works. I said, no shit, Sherlock.
Yeah.
Sorry for my
No,
swearing,
it's
but that's
okay.
what I said. Because I was so upset, because it seems to me like the criminals have all the rights and the victims have none. So then I had 14 days to write an objection to the commissioner's ruling, and it was supposed to go to the judge. I could not find an attorney to write the objection to her ruling. So I called down to the Attorney General's office and got an Attorney General that I've become pretty good friends with. And she said, this is not right. And so I ended up actually going to the law library, writing my own objection, filing the motion, and the commissioner actually tried to hear her own objection. So then the attorney that I had at the time, very nice man, he just did not understand domestic violence. I said, she's trying to hear her own objection. I said, it goes to a judge, because it goes commissioner, judge, and then you go to the Utah State Supreme Court, and then you go to federal Supreme Court, is how that goes when you don't agree with the ruling. And he goes, oh, I'm sure that's not right. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it is. So he looks, and he goes, you're right. Bring in what you wrote, and let me look at it, and then I'll get it filed. And he goes, where did you find all this? I said, the law library. Like, you should know this.
Isn't he an attorney?
Yes, but he, I'm not bad-mouthing him at all, because he did the best to his ability. He just did not understand. My ex-husband was very, him and his attorney really skirted the law. So in the meantime, the attorney general that I worked with, she said, you need to get a new attorney. And then she hooked me up with the U.S. attorney, who got me in touch with an ATF agent. The ATF agent stepped in. I don't know what he said, but he said, nope, you cannot have the guns. And then in the meantime, I got a new attorney who understands domestic violence persons and how they manipulate the system.
Yeah.
And we showed up to the hearing, and they said, we'll do whatever it takes to make her go away. He did not get to have possession of his guns, and I was not held in contempt, didn't have to pay his attorney fees.
Wow.
And that matter went away. But he has since tried getting 3 stalking injunctions on me. Tried to get, because I have a criminal protective order on him, which is a lifetime one. And I have a civil, and he's tried to get the civil protective order dismissed because the gun box is checked on that one, but it's not checked on my criminal. So I'm in the midst of getting my criminal one modified.
Is the only purpose why he's harassing you is just to get his guns back?
I believe so, yes. And when we went to court on this criminal or the civil protective order, he represented himself, and he actually stated that he was the victim in all of this.
That he was the victim.
He was the victim. He is the victim in all of this.
Man, to me it's... Oh, go ahead.
And that's, when he constantly berated me, and everything was my fault. I truly believe that he feels that he is the victim in all of this.
Yeah. And it goes back, again, this is just my belief, but it goes back to almost like what it's like living with somebody that battles addiction. In a way, just for the fact of they don't own up to their own stuff. It's always somebody else.
Because when he filed the contempt of court motions on me, on the guns, he put in there that I allegedly broke my own arm after he had been convicted of breaking my arm.
Well, man, you're a hell of a woman to break it that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Man, great job.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yes. But when you're a pathological liar, you don't remember what you lie about.
Well, yeah.
And when you're an alcoholic, because I went through the addiction with my son, I just thought somebody that drank beer, I mean, he always had a beer in his hand, always. Mm-hmm. I I never saw him drink hard liquor ever. So I never realized that he would be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Even though, he would drink a 30 pack a day sometimes. But I didn't, I'm not a drinker, so I don't like the feeling of being out of control or anything like that. So I never realized what he would turn into. And I read a book after the fact that is called Why Do They Do That by Landry Bancroft, which totally deals with abusers that are actually in prison, and they have to go through therapy that just discusses why they do what they do. And I could have been that victim in the book, and the abuser, and how they refuse to take responsibility for what they do. And he never did it, in front of anybody, and I never told anybody. And so when this finally happened, because I had never called the police on him before, and this was the only time that I did, and then even then I'm like, I don't know what to do. Should I leave him? What should I do? I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then, if it hadn't been for the police officer, I went to the emergency room, and I had to wait 2 weeks to have surgery. And so the police officer came back the next day, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he told me, if this is the first time that you called and this is what he did, he said, I've seen it time after time. We go back and we go back and we go back. He said, he didn't just start doing this to you. This isn't what he did to you the first time. He said, it's been going on. He said, if you take him back, he will kill you. He said, the next time we come, you will be dead. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And it didn't even dawn on me that that's what he was going to do. I mean, it took me a long time to realize that when he got that gun and I heard that ratcheting of that shotgun, that's what he was going to do. And I mean, I used to be an expert marksman, and I can't even, I went a year and a half later to impact guns and went to the shooting range, and when I heard that gun shooting, I had an episode because I couldn't even be around guns.
Yeah, it traumatized you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've been diagnosed with PTSD, and, he went through the court system. Oh, I'm, a veteran, and I have PTSD. Well, I found out later, he's not diagnosed with PTSD. He never even served in a combat zone. So I found out everything he told me about himself, lie. So then it made me question my capability of knowing someone.
Yeah.
It undermined my whole foundation of who I was. If I can love somebody and think this is who they are, and then I find out they're not even that person, and he's going out bad-mouthing me, and people aren't liking me because of what he's saying, but yet I'm the victim. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm getting re-victimized. And then he had his flying monkeys, which it's a term for an abuser. They have their flying monkeys. So he gets women to come after and do things like, and so I had to get a few cease and desist against people that were harassing me on his behalf. And it made me question my sanity. And so I just became a hermit. And it was very hard. And it still is sometimes. Like, did I deserve this? Why would somebody that you love do this after the fact?
Yeah.
And, there were times when I was going through the abuse, the names that he would call me, how he would downgrade me. Everything was my fault. I remember a time he hit me and bruised my cheek and he ruptured my eardrum, and then the next day I had a big bruise. He goes, you have dirt. And I'm like, no, you hit me. Oh, well, you must have deserved it then.
Wow.
And yet I stayed. And people will be like, why did you stay? Because I saw the person I fell in love with.
Yeah.
And I would see glimpses of that.
I think in a way I used to tell Janan all the time, she'd get sober for a little bit, being in a rehab and come out, and there was times she went a couple weeks or so, 3 weeks, even a month, where she'd get sober and you'd see that person that you fell in love with. And I used to tell her all the time, I'm like, you just throw that rope out there, or that bait, and you wait and you wait and you wait. It's like jigging, you know. And you finally get to that point, and I says, it's like I just spread my legs right in front of you and give you a free kick.
Yep.
You
exactly.
know? And it's like I'm allowing it to happen over and over.
Yes.
And a lot of times people would tell me, just leave, just get out of it, you know. You can go find somebody else that is better than this and will treat you better. And something kept me there. But gosh, now where was I going with this? But again, you would start thinking that when she would thrash out and say, well, you do this and you do that and you do this, I started doing the same thing. I started questioning myself, going, man, am I really that bad? Am I really this type of person that you're saying? Am I a crappy husband? I mean, really, am I that bad of a husband? You know, and you start, they have that way of bringing you back in. Like you just said, you'd see those glimpses of hope, of seeing that person that you fell in love with. And I'm trying to remember who we had on the show, or maybe it was another show that I was listening to, about how we misunderstand the word love.
Yes.
Because love is very misused.
Yes.
You know, and I think what we think is love. Now, I know someone, and I won't say who it is, but I know someone that is in a relationship, and it's not a really good relationship. I mean, this guy this girl's driving him flipping nuts. Can't even buy him a pair of new work boots without
That's
her
control.
Throwing a fit.
Love is not
know?
control.
And I've asked this guy before, I'm like, why are you he goes, because I love her. And I'm like, dude, that ain't freaking love,
Codependency.
man. Yeah, that's not love. I mean, there is no way that's love. I mean, when you can't even, he bought him a pair of new work boots. He had to hide them.
Yeah.
Because if she found out he bought him a new pair of work boots, even though his freaking feet, his ankles were hanging out of the other pair that he had, oh my gosh, hell was going to break loose. And he's like, I don't even want her to know that I have them. And I'm like, but you're in love? This is love?
Love is when both people are thriving and becoming better people, and you're uplifting both of you.
Yep. Yeah, you're working with one another.
Yes.
You know, I mean,
not sucking the other
are
person dry and downgrading and controlling and making them become less than.
Belittling.
Yes.
And man, I was guilty at that. Oh my gosh. When Janann was going through the depths of her addiction, man, I was the king of belittling. I used to beat that woman down so much because of my anger, and that is something that I've had to admit that I've done wrong. It wasn't her, it was me. I was the one that chose to be that, you know, when she was already almost all her whole life she's been belittled and felt worthless and not worthy enough. And then here I am, as I've said in my talks before, pissing more fuel on the fire and not realizing it. And, you know, now that I know better, we still got a long ways to go, but our relationship has definitely been much better since she's been sober. I mean, gosh, she's coming up on 16 months sober.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, she's really worked hard.
Well, that book I told you I was reading, it said even if somebody is totally inebriated, that they still know what decisions that they're making and what they're saying, and that they know how to manipulate and blame alcoholism on it. And that being an alcoholic does not bring out abuse. Alcoholism does not make an abuser. Abuser may make an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But an alcoholism does not make an abuser. It actually, when they're an alcoholic, it actually brings out the real personality in people, brings out the true person. So if they're an abuser, that's their real personality coming out. So if you're happy and nice, you're happy and nice when you're an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And if you're just a mean SOB, then you're...
That reminds me of an episode. I mean, you remember Johnny Carson, the Johnny Carson show.
That dates us.
Yeah, it does date us. Johnny Carson had Robin Williams on his show once, and I don't know how old I was when I saw this episode, but he was asking Robin Williams, because Robin Williams was into cocaine really heavy. Him and John Belushi were good friends, and we all know what happened to John Belushi. John Belushi actually overdosed shortly after Robin Williams left his house. But Johnny was asking Robin Williams about some of this stuff, and he made a couple comments. He goes, first, cocaine, it's the only drug that makes you horny and impotent at the same time. and then he says, well, it brings out your true personality. And Johnny goes, yeah, but what if you're an asshole? I just started cracking up. I'm like, oh, man. And I can't remember, Robin was so quick with coming back with things. I don't remember what Robin said, but yeah, I just thought that was quite hilarious. But, when we're battling something inside of us, and I want to, and the reason why I'm saying this, because I want to reel back a little bit with your son and his son. There are things that happen throughout people's lives who have been sexually abused, physically abused, they've had addiction in their family, and they tend to fall into the same type of category. One of our guests, Carrie, who was on our show out of Idaho, she was saying she came from a father who was very, very strict, and even the cops and everybody was afraid of him, drinking, kind of the addiction. And she goes, so guess what? She married that same type of person because it falls into that realm. And I really don't think all people are born bad.
I don't either.
There are people who have been brought up in different types of environments. I think that, because even going back with me, I used to have a bad anger issue, but that's how I grew up. I grew up around in a family that if things didn't go right, you got angry and you threw a fit. So I just thought that's natural. That's how you're supposed to do it. And I know it's not with everyone, but I think a majority, people who fall into the addiction, fall in sexual abuse, fall into domestic violence, different things, that they're brought up in that area. But the cycles can be broken.
Absolutely.
And this is where I want to go back. So I don't know if you've had addiction in your family other than your son.
No.
So even though it may have started with your son, where he's at right now, where he's stopped and he has this little boy, that could be the stop of it right now. Because you know that if he was still abusing and using, eventually his son would probably end up doing the same thing. But, and I don't remember who has brought that up. It might have even been an Ian show, to where you finally, again, it's almost kind of like that phrase you said, the analogy, cutting the head off the snake. You can finally put a stop to it. And I've heard other people say that I grew up in a family that, addiction was everywhere. And one family, finally one person says, nope, it stops here and they're not going to do it. JD's a good example. He had addiction all over in his family, and he's the only one that said, man, I got a good chance of being an addict too if I do this, because everyone else is. So he decided, I'm putting a stop to this. It ain't going to happen, So hopefully, while his kids are growing up.
Now, we all came from LDS, very religious, and I'm religious. I just don't go to church. I'm very spiritual and
spiritual. Yeah, that's how I like to say it. Our whole family's LDS on both sides.
Yeah, so
as well. But I don't. My church is the mountains. I spoke with my bishop a couple weeks ago, and he's like, I'd like to see you come to Sacrament a lot more. And every once in a while we'll go, but I'm like, I feel more of the Lord's presence when I'm up hiking. I went on a hike last week, and I was the only vehicle in the parking lot.
I still believe very strongly in the LDS religion. I just don't go to church.
Yeah. Well, and, we all have our own beliefs, and again, that's...
I know there's a God, and I have no doubt there's a God. He's got me through many situations, been there for me. So, I know for a fact I've seen him, so...
Yeah, I've seen him too. I had an experience probably 2 or 3 years ago. Matter of fact, our friend Lori Burton, I called her and I told her this experience, and she's like, yeah, you were visited. But I went on a hike up to Lake Blanche, up Big Cottonwood Canyon, And this was during the depths of my wife addiction, and it was snow. There was snow, and it's like about a 10-mile hike, round trip. But I got up, and I was the only one there. Usually there's some rocks you can sit on, but there wasn't really, because they were all snow-covered, lakes completely frozen. And I found this little rock, and I sat down, and I started looking around, and immediately I started bawling. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on with me, And starting to get emotional, even thinking about it. Just for a quick, brief second, I turned to my right, and it was like there was someone standing there, and I felt a hand go on my shoulder, and it says, everything will be okay. And it was gone, just like that. And I sat there for, I don't know, probably 10, 15 minutes, just tears rolling. And I was like, man, I hope no one comes up here, because I'm this guy sitting on this only rock that's not covered in snow, and I'm over here crying. But I don't know, Lori's in the studio. Do you remember me calling you up and sharing that with you? And yeah.
And you just feel unconditional love.
Yeah, yes. You're going, and I understand there's people that don't believe, and that's okay. That's their belief.
Right.
I'm not here to change their mind or anything like that. But
I know what I know.
With what I felt, man, no, I wasn't on any drugs or nothing.
Right.
It's just that experience. I needed that, and that's my church. When I get up in those mountains, some of the most coolest things. I'll share one more before we go to a break. But as I said, I went to on a hike this past weekend. It was the only vehicle in the parking lot, which I thought was kind of weird. And I'm like, So I didn't get up the trail very far before I realized I needed to put my spikes on. Started getting further, and I realized I really needed snowshoes. A couple steps I took, I sunk all the way up to my crotch. But I ended up making it all the way to my destination. Well, coming back, I was still probably about 1.5 miles away from the parking lot, and there's still quite a bit of snow. And this little teeny butterfly comes out, and I'm going, we're still in March. Everywhere I look, there's snow. I've never seen a butterfly with snow around, ever. My whole life that I can even think of, because I'm thinking, have I seen this before? And I was thinking, okay, am I being visited by somebody, or is this a sign, or what? And it almost came and landed on my cowboy hat a couple times. It came really close. And my dad recently, passed away. He passed away on February 18th. And I told him, I says, well, whenever I'm on my hikes, come and visit me. And my dad and I, we didn't have a really good relationship. Matter of fact, it's sad to say the time that I did see him, that's the first time I saw him in 5.5 years or even spoken to him. And here he is dying, and it's the first time we had this chance. And I said, just make sure that when I'm out hiking, you come and visit me. And I don't know if the butterfly was him, because he told me, he says, yeah, I'll be that rock that pops up and trips your ass. That's what he told me. And I'm like, yeah, that's him, but it's just kind of that relationship we had with one another. But I just thought that was so cool, because I do believe we get signs.
Yes, we do. All
from
the
different
time.
things. Yeah.
We do, definitely. Yeah. I get them all the time. I mean, like I said, I see angels. My ex's dad come to me all the time. He would move stuff around in the house, and I never knew his dad, because his dad was passed before we got together, and we would get marbles all the time. And we were digging up the grass, and there would be marbles underneath the sod that we dug up, and there was marbles. And
wow.
And his dad's brother passed away, and so we went up to the funeral there. Well, unbeknownst to me, the other brother was there, and he goes, oh, yeah, I just think about Benny all the time. And he goes, I get marbles. They'll just be marbles. Well, then my ex's son said, well, yeah, he had a big jar of marbles, that he collected marbles. Well, when he passed, the jar disappeared, and they never could find it.
Wow.
And so I'm like, well, maybe he's got it, and he's
going around.
But every time anybody would think of him, there would be marbles. And I didn't know that he collected marbles, but I'm like, that's him. And so here all this time, I'd be like, that's him. And then when his my son said that. I'm like, well, that's him.
Yeah.
And so I had quite a few visitations from him, and he would tease me all the time with moving my stuff around all the time. And he still does come to me and
just letting you know he's there.
Mm-hmm.
And we need those. We really do need that stuff to help us. I've had like two angel numbers today, and earlier when Brad and I were here in the studio working on this commercial, I went to go pull up something on my phone to look for some information, and it was 11:11, and we ended up finishing the commercial, and Brad sent me this link. And he goes, okay, I just sent it to you, and I went to go pull it up, and I picked up my phone, and it was 1:11. And I'm like, oh, man, this is so cool.
I know. and
Yeah.
That's the thing. People have asked me if I hate my ex, and I don't hate him. I feel bad for him, and I forgive him
Mm-hmm.
because it's too much of a burden on me to carry hate.
Yeah, it's not going to do any good for you.
No.
No.
And, I hope that he gets help someday. And it's hard on me, everything that I experience with him, but I want to help other women so that they don't have to go through what I went through, or if they're in the middle of what I've gone through, that they can get out and that they know that there's somebody there that can help them.
Yeah.
And when I was in the middle of it, there were some times that I thought about taking my life because I was so ashamed that I was going through it. I was working on base. I had a great job as a project manager up on base, and I had a wonderful job. I had respect of my colleagues. And after all this happened, I went to a therapist, and the first thing he said to me is, why would a beautiful, well-educated woman like you let a man do that to you? Victim blaming, I should
Mm-hmm.
never have a therapist say that.
Yeah.
And I thought about that for a long time, and then I got into counseling at Safe Harbor, and there was a video they showed of why did we stay, and then it made sense. We loved a person that was never that person. He was never the person that I fell in love with. And that was very hard for me. I bawled and bawled and bawled because he wasn't. He was my best friend. He was my lover. He was my husband. He was supposed to be my protector.
Yeah.
But in the end, he was my worst enemy.
It's like that movie Sleeping with the Enemy, huh?
Absolutely. And it was hard because I compartmentalized and never dealt with it for a long time. And then when I dealt with it, I crashed really hard.
Yeah.
And it was hard.
I can imagine.
And women need to know that going to a shelter does not solve domestic violence. It's a Band-Aid. They wonder why women go back to men 7 to 9 times. Because they can't take care of themselves. They're dependent. They're codependent. They don't have the finances. The men are staying in the home. The kids are seeing the cycle. Then the kids are going to repeat the cycle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they need to educate. They need to have a program that is helping them get on their feet, get a job, get educated, have the confidence in themselves. I came across confident at work, but underneath, I had absolutely no confidence in myself. He had whittled it away slowly, slowly, slowly. It's like an iceberg. You see the tip, but the underneath, the iceberg's huge.
Well, that's part of how they do it. Slowly but surely, they just start chipping away. I have a good lady friend who has a good friend she went to college with, and she's in a relationship. And I saw her a couple months ago, and I was asking how her friend was because I met her friend, and I think she lives in Colorado. But she goes, this guy she's married to is slowly but surely taking down her self-esteem. She's added like 15 pounds of weight on her.
Absolutely.
She walks around in sweats all the time, doesn't get dressed up like she used to. And I mean, these guys have been friends since their college days,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all the same age. We're all in our 50s, almost 60s. And it just eats her up,
Yeah.
that she's allowing this to happen. And yeah, it's just sad. And you know, Yvonne, maybe kind of like what I went through, why I'm doing what I'm doing now, what you went through, as tragic as it was, and here you've lost mobility of your arm and things like that. Maybe this is your journey here to
I believe it
start
is.
making a change, and you know, just keep fighting. And
Yeah, because I mean, I've contacted the UDVC. They said they'd get back to me. Oh, no. All the groups that are supposed to be there for domestic violence victims,
not
no.
there.
Not there. Not there. Every time I see that advertisement on TV, it just makes me angry. If you're a victim of domestic violence, call us. Why?
Can't get
So
hold
you
of
can
them.
stick me in a shelter? You're not going to help me get laws changed. You're not helping me do a darn thing.
Wow.
I mean, I hate to name that organization, but I had a Zoom conference with them. And I had a lady that said, I won't be one that says I'll get back to you and you never hear from me again. It's exactly what happened.
Imagine that.
Yeah, so let's just stick you in a shelter.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And there are
Absolutely.
people out there that are ready for a change.
And there's a lot of women in my situation, a lot of women.
Yep.
And we need things changed. That
Things need to be
stops. It's a
changed.
no tolerance for domestic violence. We have a no tolerance for drugs, supposedly. We need a no tolerance for domestic violence. We need to send a message that it's not acceptable to lay a hand on another person.
Yeah, no matter whether it's man or woman.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yesterday, when I went to the doctor, the medical assistant there, her son suffered from domestic violence. He had his face smashed in, had to have reconstructive surgery in the shoulder, and the man that did it to him didn't even get charges filed on him.
That's crazy.
And a gun was involved. Unacceptable.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Well, let's take a minute and we'll stop for another commercial break,
Okay.
and then we'll come back and we'll wrap this thing up. And I would like for you to share. I mean, you mentioned it, I think, earlier that you were writing a book, and I'd like to
yes.
chat a little bit more about that. So.
okay.
Okay, guys, we'll be right back.
Good morning, this is Leticia with Computer Hospital. We are your computer repair experts for both PC and Mac. We are your community resource for all of your computer repair needs. What makes us different is that we want to fix your computer. We also do free diagnostics. We charge a flat rate labor, which means that you won't pay by the hour. All of our computer repair is done in-house with a fast turnaround time, and same-day service is also available. Feel free to stop by anytime without an appointment. We're located in Sandy at 8721 South State Street. Again, that's 8721 South State Street, or call us at 801-987-3993. Again, that's 801-987-3993. This is Leticia with Computer Hospital, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Hello there, this is Brad Neufeld with the Resilience Talk Network, and I would like to introduce to you Taffytown, one of our newest sponsors. Let me introduce you to Derek.
Hi, I'm Derek from Taffytown. We're proud sponsors of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Taffytown is a family-owned and operated business still operating in the Salt Lake City area for over 100 years. We manufacture some of America's best saltwater taffy.
What makes Taffytown stand out from all of the others?
We have a unique recipe, a whip-style recipe that incorporates egg whites, evaporated milk, real sea salt. It's a unique product that is flavorful, melts in your mouth, and the best part is we probably have a flavor for anyone's liking, a flavor for any reason, for any season. We have unique flavors like chicken and waffles, maple bacon, frosted cupcake. New this year was a pineapple ghost pepper flavor.
That's awesome. Where can people find out more about Taffytown and all of its products?
You can check all of this stuff out. All of our products are available for sale on taffytown.com. We ship for free from our website, so all of our pricing on there is shipping included. Oftentimes we offer special promotions and discounts to our loyal customers, so do be sure to sign up for an account And we look forward to seeing what we can do to make you smile with our taffy.
Where are you located?
We are currently located at 9813 South Prosperity Road in West Jordan, Utah, just at the foothills of the Copper Canyon mine.
Derek, taffy has always been a great gift to give. What are some of the creative ways Taffytown can help say thank you to others?
Yeah, if you're looking for gift ideas, whether to say thank you to friends or family, or maybe to your clients after such a difficult or successful year that you've had, you could look no further than to get a gift idea from taffytown.com. We offer prepackaged gift boxes that say that it's saltwater taffy from the city of the Great Salt Lake, and it tells a little bit about the history of our community and making candy for so long. You can also do customized gifts to pick out just the right flavors or colors of candy for that special someone and deliver even a personalized message in that box to them. So please feel free to check out taffytown.com for any gift ideas this season.
Thank you so much, Derek. Please visit taffytown.com. That's taffytown.com to find out more about the products and services that Taffytown offers. You won't be disappointed.
Do you know someone who's gambling with death due to an addiction? Do you know someone whose life is being turned upside down due to a loved one that's battling with addiction? Hi, I'm Al Richards. I am the host of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. I started the podcast due to my wife's battle with alcohol. Let's just say I became addicted to her addiction. Our podcast is helping people understand a little more about those who have battled addiction and those who are hurting from their addiction. Through raw vulnerability, we share stories that help uncover the root causes of addiction. Shame felt on both sides, matter of the conscious and subconscious mind, continued beliefs, and often confusing paths of recovery. We collaborate with real people and their stories, as well as licensed professionals, to help our audience gain a better understanding of addiction. You can find us on Resilience Talk Network. You can also find us on Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. That's Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. You can also find us on YouTube. Just look up the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Other Side of Addiction. Man, what a great show this has been. I mean,
Yes,
I
it
love
has.
the information. What word am I looking for? The material that's been shared. It's been really good. Gosh, you think I'd be nervous? I'm sounding like I'm nervous sitting here in front of a camera. But hey, again, before we finish up the show, we want to say thank you to our platinum sponsor, Matter Behavioral Health in Mount Pleasant, 435-462-2781. I'm going to work on memorizing that so I don't have to look down at my notes. But I also want to take this time to thank all our listeners and all our supporters and all the other many sponsors that have shared their love and their kindness and believe in our cause and what we're doing here. So we feel very blessed and feel very grateful for all our incredible guests, our guest co-hosts, and our co-hosts that have come on the show. You guys are the reason why this is growing. So thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. Yvonne, oh my gosh, great information. I love that this show got into the addiction part as well as the domestic violence and things. And as we were saying right there before we went to break, that I do believe a lot of us out there have been going through a lot of bull crap.
Yes.
Because they're the ones that's going to start making a change. And Brad and I have talked about it many times here in the studio. And again, I don't want to forget Resilience Talk Network. So we're here because of them as well. but we're talking about that there is a change that's coming.
Yes.
We feel it, and it's just not us that have been in this room. I've talked to other people where they're feeling something too. They're feeling like there's something that's going to change, and I'm just as guilty as saying this in the past, but I'm starting to change my mind a little bit. But it really scares me with the world the way it is right now. And we don't watch the news, so I don't know really a lot what's happening because I choose not to put that negative stuff in my mind.
Either.
But, what kind of world will our grandkids grow up in? And I know it's changing, and they may not grow up in the same type of world that we did. But for me, I believe they are a new change.
Yes.
Because you mentioned it at the start of the show, how intelligent they are. And I've seen it in my grandkids as well, and I've heard other people talk about their grandkids the same way. And yeah, maybe it has to do with technology a little bit, maybe. But I think their minds are working in a different way. And I think Eckhart Tolle wrote a book called The New Earth. I think these young kids are going to be the new Earth. I think they're going to see what's going on, and
it's like
hopefully
they're ready for something.
It's like they're ready for something,
Yes.
or God's putting
Yes.
things in place, and I do believe it does start with a lot of us who have gone through a lot of bull crap like yourself. You're stepping up to the plate, and I just getting teary thinking about it. I just want to tip my hat off to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so strong to be able to step up to the plate and share your experience and have the balls to stand up and go fight, because too many of us back down and say it'll never happen, there'll never be a change. And I call bullshit on that. And the reason why is because you hear a lot of stories of even like actors or musicians or artists and stuff where they were put down and refused over and over and over and over, but they believed in what they were doing, and all of a sudden they made a change. If everybody gave up so quickly because of 1,000 no's,
Right.
a lot of things that we count on every day to use in our life wouldn't even be here anymore.
Like Albert Einstein, I think it was like 100,000 times before he invented the light bulb.
Yeah,
He
well, that
would've
wasn't
given-
Einstein, but that was
Yeah, sorry.
Thomas
Yeah,
Edison.
sorry,
Thank
Thomas
you,
Edison.
Thomas Edison. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know why I said Einstein. Yeah, Edison, the light
Yeah.
bulb. Yeah. I mean, it took him like thousands and thousands of times. I don't know why I said
Well,
Einstein.
he just said it. I
Yeah.
just found 10,000 ways that it didn't work.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know why I said Einstein.
Yeah. No, but that's okay. But well, there was a lot of things Einstein said too that ended up.
Yeah.
Because there
I
was
mean,
things that he knew there was something there, and he
Yes.
couldn't quite figure it out before he died, but it was figured out.
Yes.
So yeah. So thank you, and I apologize for getting so emotional, but
It's okay.
it's things like that, because what I've gone through hasn't been near as tragic as what you've gone through, but it's time there is a change, and yeah. So you've started writing a book.
Yes, it's called And With a Broken Wing. I'm working with a ghostwriter, and it'll probably be out in the next couple of months. It's about my experience and what I've learned through domestic violence and how women can help themselves and not feel guilt. I felt a lot of guilt after, and just how they can help themselves, and how they can read the book and say, that could be me.
Yeah.
And how it can just go as a wave, and how they can get out of it. They can help themselves, and they can help someone else. Because we need to come together as women instead of downgrading each other. Help each other. Because I had a lot of friends, or what I thought were friends, turn on me through this.
Wow.
And it was very difficult for me, because I was always there for them, but they weren't there for me.
It's when we find out who our true friends really are, huh?
Yes, you do.
Brad and I have talked about that many times.
I've learned now to keep my circle very small.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's hard enough being a woman anyways, but we don't need to tear each other down. We need to build each other up.
I agree.
And never let a man treat you or downgrade you. You are better than that. You need to believe in yourself. You need to love yourself, because I realized that letting someone treat me like that, I did not love myself. And every woman out there, love yourself. I love you. You are beautiful and you are worth it. And if a man is treating like that, you need to leave. And you need to set a boundary and not let him cross it. And if he does it, you need to leave. Or you need to make him leave.
Yeah. And I like how you said, have your boundaries.
Yes.
Because that is something I didn't realize for a long time in the depths of my wife addiction. They teach them boundaries.
Yes.
When they're in AA and they're in rehab and stuff, but didn't realize that us on the other side need to have our boundaries too.
Yes, we
now,
do.
The hard part is sticking to it.
Yes, because every time they abuse, they push the boundary more and more and more. And they know, oh, well, if I do this, she's going to let me. Then I'll push it more.
Yeah.
Oh, she's letting me. And then I push more. And it's the frog in the hot water scenario. Have you ever heard of that?
You mentioned that before.
Yeah, if you put a frog in a pan of boiling hot water,
Yes.
he's going to jump out. You put him in cold water and slowly turn the heat on, he's boiled to death before he even knows it.
Yeah.
That's domestic violence.
Yep.
And that's also addiction.
It is addiction. I was just going to say that. That sounds like addiction too, because
Yes.
it's that slow progression, and I've used this before when I saw an interview about Johnny Cash, and some reporter that was interviewing said, so I understand you used to use a lot of pills. And he goes, oh yeah. He says, I took a ton of pills, and then one day I realized the pills were taking me.
Yes.
And by the time you realize it, it's usually too late.
Because if my abuser had started at the end of the relationship when I first dated him, I wouldn't have a thing to do with it.
Yeah. Way of drawing you in. If somebody, so your book is not done, you're still working on it.
Correct.
If somebody is interested about how they can get your book, is there a way for them to contact you to find it?
Yes, they can email me. My email is YVONNE, R as in Roger, Z as in zebra, R as in Roger, @gmail.com.
Okay.
And then I'll get them on the list for a copy when it comes out.
Okay, cool. And we'll be sure on our end that we have that there when the show launches out there. So we always like to give our guests that opportunity to have whatever information they
and
want
if
to share.
anyone is going through abuse or needs somebody to help them or help with the law, I'm not a lawyer, but I have a very good lawyer. Plus, I'm also, I know a lot about domestic
It
violence.
sounds like you do, yeah.
They can also contact me through my email, too, and I'd be more than happy to help them.
That's cool. I love that. Yvonne, again, thank you so much.
Thank you all for having me on.
taking
I
time
appreciate it.
be here with us today. Really do appreciate it. And thank you for dragging Lori, because it's been quite a long time since
She's
I've had
pretty
a
awesome.
chance to see Lori. It's been a really long time, but it's always a pleasure having you here, and please know that you're always welcome.
Thank you.
We do like putting guest co-hosts on the shows every once in a while. It kind of puts a whole different spin
Yes.
on things. So if you're interested, would always
Definitely.
love to have you come
I would
back.
love to.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Well, guys, again, thank you for all your support. Again, thank you to Matter Behavioral out of Mount Pleasant. Thank you for your sponsorship and all your love. And just want to say thank you to all the rest of our sponsors, to you, our listeners, and just all the great support that we're getting from everybody. And big thank you again to Brad here with Resilience Talk Network. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of cool things coming out of Resilience here. There's a lot of work that we haven't had a chance to get to, but things are changing now, and that is happening. So we're going to leave you with this, as we do at the end of every show. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.